We begin from India, whose Supreme Court has ordered Narendra Modi's government to restore selective normalcy in occupied Kashmir. Hearing pleas against the revocation of Kashmir's special status, the court said India's national interest must take priority during the restoration process. Chief Justice Ranjan Gogoi said he will visit the Jammu and Kashmir High Court to evaluate the situation on the ground. Meanwhile, former Chief Minister of Indian-occupied Kashmir Farooq Abdullah has been arrested under the controversial Public Safety Act. India's Home Ministry issued the detention orders for Abdullah hours before the Indian Supreme Court's hearing on the Kashmir crisis. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said India stands divided after this court verdict. Talking to media, he said Indian top court's verdict aligns with Pakistan's stance on the Kashmir situation. He also says the European Parliament will discuss the occupied Kashmir issue tomorrow. Meanwhile, former Chief Minister of Indian-occupied Kashmir Farooq Abdullah has been arrested under the controversial Public Safety Act. Now, for more on this, we have with us Rebecca Banthan, Indus News correspondent from Mumbai. Thanks, Rebecca, for joining us. Rebecca, the Indian court said there should be normalcy, but selectively. So isn't that self-contradictory? Tell us more about it.
So what they're saying is the Supreme Court has said that normalcy does have to be restored in the region. They want to see schools opening, hospitals operating and life returning to normal, because since August the 5th there has been this lockdown. Obviously things have not been as normal, but there's been a blackout of communications. A number of people have been under house arrest, people have been detained, people have not been freely moving about, media coverage has not been freely facilitated, which has been a complaint of many media outlets. A lot of information just isn't freely moving around. So this has been a major concern since Kashmir's special status was revoked on August 5th by the Indian government. So the Supreme Court, now having heard these pleas, is saying that normalcy does have to be returned, but it's also recognising that this is an abnormal, exceptional set of circumstances, and that there is the issue of there's national interest, concerns about security and so on. And that's why it's saying that although restrictions, it's implying, have to be eased, that can't necessarily all be done in one go. It's saying it has to be done on a selective basis, suggesting that perhaps things have to be monitored quite closely to see that the violence, any potential outbreaks of violence are minimised and so on. So I think that seems to be the issue here.
Right. Rebecca, also tell us, there are reports that the Chief Justice may visit Srinagar to know the realities on the ground, and the international media has already covered the dire on-ground situation in the occupied Kashmir. So will he be reviewing that also?
Well, it has been suggested that there might be a visit by the Chief Justice, and that's largely because there have been these complaints that the high courts of Jammu and Kashmir, that people perhaps aren't getting the access that they want. In particular, there was an activist that filed a plea that came up today, and that was an issue that highlighted. And the Supreme Court, has said that that's something it takes, effectively it's saying that it's something that it takes very seriously, and if it needs to do so, it would visit the region. It's also suggested that some of the cases should actually be heard locally. Like, for example, the editor of the Kashmir Times has complained that they're not being allowed to, effectively because of communication restrictions, movement restrictions, they're not being able to report properly on the matter in Kashmir. And that's one of the pleas one of the petitions that came up. And in that case, the Supreme Court did suggest, well, is this a local issue, and is it something that should be heard by the Jammu and Kashmir High Court rather than the Supreme Court? But then obviously they need to make sure that those cases are being heard properly in the region, and now that's something that's definitely going to be looked into from what we've heard from what's come out of the Supreme Court today.
Right, thanks, Rebecca, for your time.